Okay, now I'm finally live. I will get the hang of this StreamYard yet. Maybe. I hope. Before they change everything. Just as I learn stuff, a lot of times everything gets changed. I am Geralyn St. Joseph. I am a psychic intuitive and a relationship empowerment coach. I didn't know if you know this, but I'm also an author. I am an author on Amazon. I have several books. I don't remember how many, it's 5 or 6. And hopefully I'll be putting up some more soon. We'll see how that goes. For some reason, technology has been fighting me lately. But I wanted to show you some of the books I've done. So this is Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity, I have 2 books under that header. This one is What Are You Dealing With? Ghost or Angel, Demon or Spirit. I said that completely wrong, but I have dyslexia, so I have an excuse. Anyway, most of my books are quick reads. As you can see, this is not real long. And the way I write them, I try to put the information so that it's easy to go through and easy to see what's important. If there's certain types of things that you want to skip, it's easy to skip. In this original book especially, I do have a lot of Bible quotes, and I did that for a few reasons. One is I was raised Roman Catholic, and the other reason is because people often will approach me and ask about, whether I believe in God and things like that. And I want people to know I do. I have a very strong faith. That's how I do what I do. And I think it's a misnomer to think that people who utilize their God-given gifts are non-believers. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. If we can see further and a little bit more of what's going on, so far as the tapestry of the energetics that create our lives, I don't understand how anybody could be or would be someone who didn't have some kind of faith. And by faith, I mean actual faith. Not necessarily, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hindu, whatever religion, but rather faith in God and a knowing of there being more in the universe than what meets the eye. So when I wrote this book, what I did was, as I was writing, I pulled different things out of the Bible to show people that, they don't have to be afraid of metaphysics. They don't have to be afraid of metaphysicians. Should you be skeptical? Of course, be skeptical. You shouldn't go in blindly either. But it also doesn't mean that the person is a bad person because they are using their God-given gifts to help others. That's why we're given these gifts. Now, do some people misuse it? Of course, some people misuse it. It's just like anything else. I went through and did that in this book, and I do it in such a way, like I said, where I have it stand out. So like you can see, like, this is a Bible passage. So if you didn't want to be bothered with it, you could just go right past it because it's indented and you could see where that is. I also put some of my life experiences in here and in most of my books because I feel like it's easier to understand if you can relate through stories what someone is going through or what they're trying to project, what they're trying to teach. And I find that to be a very useful tool as we move forward. I am hoping to put these books on as an Audible to create audio books out of them. And as I said, they're a quick read. There's a lot in here so far as information, but I tried to make things like bite-sized so that you can understand what you're reading and really take it in before you go on to the next part. Most of my books you can read in an afternoon, depending on the type of reader you are, or you could go chapter by chapter and see how things sit with you. Most of my books, if you get it as an audio book, there will be links in there to different processes that we do, like different meditations, different breathing exercises. You can also find a lot of that stuff on my website. So my website, let's see, I'll put it up. There we go, GeralynSt.Joseph.com. So that's easy enough. Or if you wanted to simply look up my name in quotes, I am the only Geralyn St. Joseph that's on the internet right now doing the work that I do. So it's pretty easy to find my websites. I have several. I love being creative, so I get a little overzealous with creating websites. I do need help in keeping everything together and up to date. So if anybody wants to offer their services and trade with me, I would be more than happy to have you as part of my my different classes and whatnot. Okay, so we'll put that back. The other thing I wanted to talk about today, besides reminding everybody that I am an author also, and that you can purchase my books for Kindle, and I have 2 that are actually in paperback, is I wanted to talk about the current energy right now. It seems like things are very, very frustrating for people. People are getting overwhelmed. There's a lot of uncertainty. Now, I'm in America, so I'm in the United States. I shouldn't just say America because there's North America and South America, but I'm in the United States. So we're coming up on an election year, which is always so annoying and stressful. But the last several elections have been much more so than previous, and I remember as a kid. Things are getting very tense. And the reason why things are getting very tense is because there are a lot of changes that are happening in the world right now. And you may agree with them or you may not agree with them, but it's something you need to deal with, that we all need to deal with collectively. So we all need to look at whether or not we are prepared for this, whether or not we are going to move forward with it. Are we going to buck it? Are we going to try to change the course? Like, where is our flow going? Where is the energy going right now? Because right now it feels really chaotic. Things are coming out and coming to light that a lot of people didn't expect, or some people call like conspiracy theories and that kind of thing. We need to be open to really looking at facts and starting to look at through different perspectives to try and see what the truth is or where the truth lies. One thing that people do as humans, basically, is they will grab onto the first thing that they hear that they like and hold on to that intently, whether it's true or not. And then trying to get them to let go of that bone is very difficult, if not impossible. The person has to be open to seeing how things play out and then changing their beliefs around it, which is not easy for a lot of people. It seems like many people just want, and I get this a lot as a reader, just give me the answers. Just tell me, is this going to happen? How is this going to work? How is this going to happen? And the truth of the matter is, it depends on you. There's no tried and true way of doing things where we're going to be able to just figure everything out for you. What I do as a reader is I'm looking at the energetic, I'm looking at the flow that you're in, and I'm looking at the direction it's going to. And oftentimes there's going to be a fork, there's decisions. And when you're at a choice point, you need to think about what that choice is. Now I could show you what's on the other side of that choice. I can tell you, okay, you have 3 job offers. What happens if I take this? What happens if I take this? What happens if I take this? And we can look at those things and figure out which would be most beneficial to you. I can teach you how to feel into your own intuition so that you get a good indicator of where you need to be and what you should be doing. I can help you in a lot of different ways. But it comes down to you. It's your decision. We do have free will. Now, not everything is up to us as individuals, but for each person making a decision, if we're all falling into line in a specific way, then at some point, then everything's going to move in that direction. As long as we believe that we don't have anything to contribute, or that our paltry contribution means nothing, then it will mean nothing, because then we're just following whatever. And that's where the chaos comes from. Chaos also comes from hanging on too tight when the river is going in a different direction. You have to know when to move. You have to try and figure that out and allow yourself the space to be able to do that. I wrote a book a while ago, and it's called 50 Ways You Can Change the World, Small Steps to Making the World a Better Place. And in that book, I talk about all of these little things that we can do. Things like smiling when we walk down the street, saying hello to everybody, being kind, being open to kindness, which means asking for help when we need it also, or allowing other people to help us. Because much as we enjoy helping someone else, so too would other people enjoy helping us. So I'm putting the link down to 50 Ways to Change the World, and it should come up in your chat section. And some of us think, oh, we can't change the world. But the world has only been changed one person at a time. That's the only way you can do it, is one person making a decision and walking in a direction, and then other people will make that same decision or will follow. If we're all just sitting here like waiting for somebody else to make the decision and waiting for somebody else to show us where to go, we will get nowhere, or nowhere good. That's what leads to dictatorships. That's what leads to really horrible societies. We need to make the impetus and create what it is we want to see. And we need to start with us. I know I make it sound so easy. In some ways it is. Sometimes you do have to buck the system. You have to find your integrity and find your authenticity and start there, and then move forward from there. When we don't do that, when we just follow blindly, that's when problems happen. I hear so many people speaking in sound bites. It's like, they'll just repeat what they heard on the news or on TikTok or whatever, and it'll be this little sound bite. And I will say, do you know where that comes from? Do you know behind whatever that statement is? And I'll give you a little nugget. This is old, but a lot of us say to our kids, and when curiosity killed the cat. Do you know that's only the first part of the saying? It's curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought him back. Changes the whole meaning of it. We say that to warn against being curious, which actually we should be curious. We should be asking questions. We should be discovering things on our own. And I know that at this point in time and moving forward, because of AI and the way different algorithms are done, it's becoming harder and harder to really flesh out the truth. You have to use something to cover your tracks so that Google doesn't know who you are as you're looking, because they're just going to serve up what you want to see and not what's real. So you need to look at things that you may not want to look at. Like if you're a Democrat, you may want to look at Fox News. If you're a Republican, you may want to look at CNN, and not sit there like this the whole time, but actually listen and watch. And where are the through lines? Where is the same thing being said amongst, different groups? because therein lies the truth. Where is everything intersecting? And we know in our society that the media and the internet will twist things to try and get more clicks, which means more money. It's about greed and blah, blah, blah. And you can look at the world that way, or you can acknowledge that part of the world is that way, but that is not the way of most people. That's not our way. You can also look for the good that people are doing. Like Mr. Rogers said, when there's a problem, look for the helpers. Who are the ones who are going above and beyond? I mean, look at people who are emergency workers. Look at people who are firemen, who are police officers, who put themselves in danger every day trying to help and protect other people. And yes, in every group, there's going to be people who undermine the integrity of the group, but that's not the group. That's not the whole group. So we mustn't just lump people together. Same thing goes for our prejudices when it comes to everything from skin color to belief systems. Here in America, in the United States, we have a problem with people assuming that they know everything about a person because of maybe one idea. We talk about things like abortion. Well, there's aloha. There's all these different levels to it. So it's not just about, is it good or is it bad? It's like, okay, there's nuances there, and the nuances don't get spoken about because as soon as you mention it, it's like, oh, you're either this or you're this. Either you're a baby killer or, you know, you're a crazy person who wants to take away women's reproductive rights. And it doesn't have to be either, because there's a lot of nuance there. We do this with so many different things, and we have to stop. We need to stop ourselves from doing that knee-jerk reaction thing and just like this tribalism that's happening, because it is not helpful. It's okay to find groups with similar interests. It is not okay to then beat up on or be bullies to another group who doesn't have the same interests. It's not okay to, you know, call people names and tell them that they're stupid because they believe something. We need to start to listen to each other more, like actually listen and see what is there. What is the kernel? What is the thing that this person is holding on to? That will not only help us in our communication, but will help us environmentally and in a broader stance to understand where people are coming from. That's compassion. Compassion is about listening. It's about seeing what's actually there and not assuming what's there. Compassion is one of the highest vibrations. It's one of the highest emotions that we can have, so far as really pulling ourselves out of the more brutal nature of being a mammal. We don't need to beat up on each other. We don't need to attack each other. We don't need to fight over every little thing. Most things have nuance. No matter what we're talking about, no matter how big the conversation is or how much it takes. So, for instance, sometimes what we need to do is like chunk things down. So, for instance, I know a lot of people with global warming. So global warming is like, ooh, big topic. And people will catch on to like one little thing or another little thing. So, but they're not looking at the whole picture. So when we talk about things like, oh, well, electric cars, that's going to solve things. It's really not, because you're still doing all the mining. You're still losing forest. And worse than that, we don't have the infrastructure. Very few areas have the infrastructure to be able to handle everybody driving an electric car. And the cost is so much higher. And physically, for us, the cost is a lot higher, but that's something nobody talks about, is the EMF that these things throw off and how bad that is for your system. They don't look at that because it's inconvenient. Just like with the cell phones. Oh, everybody's got a cell phone now. Cell phones aren't as good as landlines because things like earthquakes, too many people, there's so many things that knock them out. Even the solar flares knocked out a lot of cell phone service. So that's so easily intruded upon, whereas a landline, you had to directly get in there to intrude upon it. The landline also did not have the EMF and all the radiation that's put out by cell phones and cell phone towers. Nobody wants to talk about that because it's inconvenient. It's like, well, but we went this way and you're just bucking that, nobody wants to go back and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm just pointing out some things that are true that you would prefer not to look at. Then, once we figure out how to really talk and listen and discuss and get into the nuance of things. So, okay, so maybe electric cars are not the way to go. Maybe we need to go to the hydrogen cars, which have been around since, well, I know they were supposed to go into production in 2003, and then that stopped for whatever reason. That's perfect. Like, what does it put out? What's it putting out so far as emissions? It's putting out water. So hydrogen cars are much better. It'd be easier to set up gas stations as hydrogen stations, and it doesn't put any more of a load on our systems that are there already. But what's the downside to that? Everything is going to have an upside and a downside. Our job is to weigh things. But when people get on, like everybody's jumping on the bandwagon and attacking each other for things, you're not having any conversation. When conversation is shut down, that is censorship. When you're not allowed to talk about things, when you're not allowed to question something, that's when you know it's wrong. If you're not allowed to question, how your body is going to react to the C-19 vaccine. If you're not allowed to question that, then what's wrong with that? I should be able to question it. You should be able to have answers. Or if you don't have answers, you could just say you don't have an answer. But we need to be able to talk about these things. I remember as I was raising my child, and I would look all kinds of things up. I worked for a doctor, and my mom was like, why do you even want to know that? Well, because if I can avoid injuring my child, I would like to do that. Or if I can help my child become more healthy and successful, I want to do that. And if I can help other people, I want to do that. And isn't that what most of us want? I mean, we're shown, like everything we're seeing on the news and things like that, they're showing us greed and hate and envy and the 7 deadly sins. But the truth of the matter is, if you look at the people around you, the majority of the people around you aren't like that. I recently was talking to some of my neighbors, and I love my neighbors. They're awesome. I don't get to talk to them very often, but we definitely look out for one another, and we help each other out when we can. And if I have something that I have a lot of, I'm going to share it. I'm not going to hoard it. And my neighbors are the same way. And in my point of view, because I choose to look for the helpers, I believe most people are like that. Most people can be kind. I think we're taught to be unkind. I think because we get hurt and then we try to protect ourselves. That's what creates unkindness. But I don't think that's our nature. Don't get me wrong. There are people who are born with a contrary nature, I'll call it, or with issues that create a very violent streak in them, or things aren't quite right because they don't have the emotional component to things to be able to understand things. But that's not most people. That's a very small part of the population. And when we start making these grand comments on things like, well, this whole generation is bad, or everybody who does this is bad, just like everybody who has blue hair. Well, when I was a kid, all the older ladies had blue hair. That's who has blue hair. My kid sometimes has blue hair. Sometimes I do my hair in fun colors at the bottom. It's something that's fun and expressive, and it shouldn't be a mark of ignorance. You get those couple of people who get in front of the cameras and who make a lot of noise, who maybe are ignorant, and then everybody gets put into that category. And that is very unfair and something we really need to combat against. What is it that you see that you immediately react to? I mean, you could call it a trigger. What is it that triggers you? I want you to sit down and really think about that. And then I want you to follow it and figure out why. Like, I know for myself, there are certain names I really don't like. Why don't I like them? Well, because there was somebody with that name, or the only person I know with that name was very abusive towards me. That's why I have that trigger. Now, is it fair for me to then look at everybody with that same name because that one person? No, it's not. So I need to work on myself and go inside and heal that bruise and open up to discovering other people who don't have that same kind of a personality. Our names do mean something. If you go online, and again, you got to go in incognito because Google will show you what you want to see instead of the truth or give you an unbiased picture. But what I used to do before was I would look at different names and I would look up the name and see what comes up. And what I found oftentimes is that people with the same name will be in the same or similar profession. So like I have a friend whose name is Deborah Harrison. She's an amazing pet communicator. She's in Hawaii. She also does, she's an herbalist and she's an acupuncturist. Amazing healer. So I looked up her name. And when I look up her name, the names that come up that are the same as hers or similar, like Deborah, you could spell it a couple different ways. They're veterinarians. They are doctors. They are also like Eastern healers. So it's interesting that most people with her name have a similar bent to where they're going. And I believe it's because our names mean something. Our names give us power. Our names give us our energy. Our names give us something as we move forward. Some people like to change their name every time they feel a little different or they grow a little bit. Other people keep their names. I have the same name from birth, and I will keep my name. When I was a little kid, I wasn't real keen on my name because people get it wrong all the time. People still get it wrong, but I love my name now because I know what it means. And I've looked at that and I've embraced that. And when you figure out who you truly are and you embrace who you came into the world to be, and who you are in the world, and you are authentic with yourself, and you come into alignment with your own integrity, life is easier. It's not a piece of cake, but when you're in the flow, it is easier because as you get older and you go through more things, when you are in alignment with who you came to be, with who you truly are, and your integrity, your authenticity, it's easier to stand up for yourself in the face of somebody bullying you or trying to make you be something that you're not. It's easier to move forward because you know what your truth is. You know who you are. You know what you want and how you want to be perceived in the world. Yesterday, I was talking to one of my good friends, Jennifer O'Neill. She's a Hawaii psychic also. And we talked about like how we see ourselves versus how other people see us. So depending on how you were raised, and I believe this has a lot to do more with females than males, just because of the way we're raised, but not necessarily, because I know guys who go through the same thing. It's like the way we see ourselves is so different than the way other people see us. So like on Facebook, sometimes they'll have things like, oh, describe me in one word, or use the third letter in your name to have a word that describes me to you, or something like that. And they'll ask, like, how did you see me? If you grew up with me, how did you see me growing up? And through like little weird things like that, I realized that when I was growing up, even though it was really difficult for me, I was going through a lot. I think we all are. That people saw me as always being positive, always having a smile. My mom doesn't see me that way, and probably my siblings don't either. I don't know. But I didn't see myself that way, as being uplifting to the people around me, even though that's what I wanted to be. That's what I wanted to do. From when I was in fourth grade, I decided that I wanted to be a priest or be a spiritual person, because that was just my nature. And people saw that and felt that. I want you in the next couple of days to just write down how you see yourself. Like, how do you feel successful? What does successful look like? What are you hoping for? What are your goals, your hopes, your dreams? And how do you feel about that? Do you feel it's attainable? Do you feel like you're getting there? Do you feel like you're there already? And then I want you to ask some of the people around you, especially people that you trust, how would you describe me? People say to do this all the time when you're putting together a singles ad, like online and stuff. It's like, well, ask, how would your friends describe you? In fact, I've seen that on different sites. How would your friends describe you? Because the way you describe you is often so different than the way your friends describe you. And you may see yourself so different. And I want you to take the time to sit down and think about your real accomplishments. What have you accomplished? Where have you been? What have you done? Who have you stood up to? And I also want you to think about, how do you want to get to where you're going? Now, these are all things that we all deal with. And these are all things that we can, as a community, like really raise each other up. And we can help one another to attain these goals instead of pushing each other down. I had a guy call me, it was so funny, and he wanted to redo my website, wanted me to do this local listing thing on Google. I'm like, I don't do local because I'm international. I don't need local. I don't have a brick and mortar. There's no reason for me to be local. And he kept fighting and fighting and fighting about it. And he's like, but there are so many other people in your area and they're being found and you're not being found. And I said, that's okay. And he's like, what? I said, that's fine. There's enough for everyone. I don't need to be number one. I just need the people who need me to find me. I want to be able to help the people that come to me. And yeah, it's nice if they can afford what I charge. But it's also great if they find somebody else maybe who they work with better. There's enough for everybody to go around. There's enough abundance. And even though it really doesn't feel like that right now in so many parts of the world, it is the truth. There's enough. You're enough. When I start feeling lack, I just remind myself of a passage in the Bible where Jesus says, God takes care of the birds and the trees and all the animals of the earth. And if he loves you more than them, don't you think that he takes care of you too? That he'll make sure that you're okay? And what I find is that we often will block our abundance. We'll stop it from coming because we feel unworthy, or we have anger, or we have resentment. And all that just stops the flow. We need to lift ourselves up and out of that. And nobody can do it for you. You have to do it for you. You have to do the work. I can show you the way, but you need to do the work. I can give you the tools, but you need to do the work. So if you're interested in working with me, come to my website, communicate with me, let me know, and we'll talk. I'm also on meetup.com. I have Mystery, Mystics, and Metaphysics, and I also host Relationship Empowerment. Those are my two groups. Join us there. You can join in the discussion when I host my Zoom meetings, and we do different, we have different topics all the time. And you could also let me know, what topics do you want me to cover next? How often would you like to see me, and what would you like me to cover? We could cover everything from relationships to faith to like getting into your intuition, whatever it is that you need. I'm here to be of service. This is my full-time job, but I want to help people. That's what I'm here for. Okay. I also said that I was going to be testing out some things, so I'm hoping that you can hear me. I have this microphone right here. I'm using a different camera, which is a depth stitch, I think it's called. It doesn't say it on the thing. But if you like the way this looks, especially in comparison to some of my other videos, which the cameras were a little bit lower tech, not a lot, because a lot of it depends on your stream, let me know. And if there's anything that you'd like me to talk about, or if there's any groups that you want to join, or you have anything else that you would like me to cover, let me know. This is Geralyn St. Joseph. I am an author, a speaker, a coach, and a psychic intuitive. If you like this, please join, subscribe if you're on YouTube, and put some things down in the comments so that we get a little more visibility as we move forward. Alrighty, mahalo.